So this whole idea of inner healing, or we talk about maturity, being free in God, is a huge topic.
我们讨论到内在医治后，我们讲怎么样在神的里面成熟，这是一个很大的课题。
I mean, it really is defined as life.
这实际上是讲到我们生命的定义。
It's not just a topic, although we have to address it as a topic.
我们不只是用一个主题来看它，
But for me, it's life.
但对我来说，这就是生命。
The longer I have walked with God, the more this is life.
我越长远的我跟主走在一起，我就越明白这就是生命。
There is no subdivision or compartmentalization. Me and God is life.
这不是分成很多的碎片的一段一段的，
Yeah.
但是这是我跟神一起走过的生命。
And I love it how Jesus puts it so plainly, simply, but importantly, where he says, this is eternal life, that you know God.
我很感谢神这么简单的来描述他，这么清楚的说明，认识我就是永生。
Yeah. This is eternal life, that you would know the one who created you.
永生就是你知道你认识那位创造你的是谁。
You would know the one that sits on the throne, whom we call our Father in heaven.
你认识那位坐在天上的宝座的，然后我们称他为我们永生的父。
And that you would know God through the Son that came, that looked like you and me, that feels like you and me, and that experiences life like you and me.
你认识那位他的儿子，而他下来让我们看起来像我们，他也做事起来感觉起来就像我们一样。
Have you ever just suddenly thought, the fact that God came as Jesus, that's healing to me?
你有没有忽然感受到那个神让耶稣道成肉身来到世上就带来医治？
That this God who doesn't have to be in the complexities of the life of this world of life that we're in actually chose to come and live for so many years.
神不需要来经历我们在地上的这一些软弱跟复杂，但是事实上他做了，并且他下来在我们当中住了很久。
To me, the very fact that God came in the flesh to walk in this life that I'm walking in is healing to me in many ways.
当我明白到神道成肉身住在我们当中的事实，对我来说就带来很大的医治。
Because he's not just someone who gave us a whole bunch of law, but he wants life with us.
他不是那位带来给我们一堆的律法要我们遵守的那位，而是把生命给我们的那位。
He's not like the religious and the Pharisees who set up all this thing, but they don't want to live in it. They just make sure you do it.
他不像是法利赛人或是宗教者，他们设立了很多律法，他们连自己都不能遵守，而他只是要求你要遵守。
But this God came to where I am at in life and said, "Here I am."
而神是自己来到你的生命中，就是你的处境里面，然后来向你显现说：“我来了。”
And as I live, you get to observe how God would relate to situations, how God would see situations.
所以当你来生活的时候，你可以看到神就跟你一同来面对这些你生命中所经历的事情。
Yeah. It just moving just to think about that.
当我们想到这件事，我们就心里被感动。
And it's not about learning a lot of details per se, but just the very fact that as we come to a real recognition, God draws near in Jesus.
这不是在研究许多的神学的细节，而是单纯的深深的走进这个事实里面，神来到我们当中，借着耶稣。
And now as New Testament believers, it's even one step more profound where God dwells in men.
在新约的信徒里面，我们更加扎实的明白到一个真理，就是神住在人中间。
And the revelation of the real impact of that, not just head knowledge, the impact of God dwells in me.
在这个很实际的 impact 冲击，我们领受到是不只是脑袋知道，而是生命经历到神住在我里面。
And as who we are as human beings, at the heart, at the mind, becomes more and more aware of this fact, God dwelling in
我们
us.
的心跟我们的意念都更多的觉醒，来认同这个事实，神住在我们里面。
The real fruit of that is what we call maturity, freedom.
这样所结出来的果子，我们就称它为一个成熟的自由。
Yeah. Maturity, freedom, health. We use all these terms.
我们用成熟、用自由、用完全的健全来描述。
Restoration.
恢复。
That's at the core of this whole topic, inner healing.
这是整个内在医治主题的核心。
The other day, I was in the prayer room, and they're singing on stage. I'm just kind of focused in prayer and doing my own thing.
有一天我在祷告室里面，台上在唱歌，我就是坐在那里，然后默想做着我自己的事。
It was suddenly a phrase that was sung on stage totally captivated my attention.
突然有一个在台上唱出来的片语，深深的抓住我的注意力。
And it's just a phrase in the song, but that phrase in particular says, "It's only in your will that I am free."
这个片语就是短短的在一首歌里面，他说的是：就在你的旨意里面，我得自由。
It's only in your will that I am truly free.
我只得自由在你自己的旨意里面。
When you think about that right now, where you're sitting, how does this phrase move you?
现在我们来默想这个经文，当你现在坐在这里，它怎么样来感动你？
So that day I went from being focused on what I did to suddenly being gripped by that phrase that's being sung.
我本来在做自己的事情，忽然这句片语被唱出来，它抓住了我的注意力。
The fullness of my thinking, who I am, was drawn to that, and my emotions, the fullness of it was engaging with that phrase.
我是谁？我的情绪，那个我生命里的东西，都完全的忽然连接上这个真理。
And I began weeping. I mean, the good tears.
我开始哭泣，而这是一个很感动、好的眼泪。
The type of tears that when you weep, it helps you. It's the tears that says, finally, I'm connected with the purpose of my existence.
这个眼泪是在描述，终于，我连接到这个生命的目的。
There's a weeping of sorrow, but there's a weeping of, I've found it. Revelation is here.
有一些哭泣是为了哀伤，但是我这个哭泣是因为我找到了这个启示。
Wow, it's only in your will that I'm free.
是唯有在你的旨意里面，我是自由的。
But not only was I feeling my own joy that I'm finding in this phrase, but at the same time, that phrase is also God's heart for me.
不只是我享受到这个片语时候所带来的喜乐，而我更深明白这一句话就是神在我生命当中的心意。
Son, do you know that it's only in my will, in my ways, that you are free?
孩子，你知道吗？只有在我的心意里面，你是自由的。
It's only when you align yourself
唯有你对齐你自己，在我的里面，
that you will experience the freedom that the whole world is talking about, but they don't know about.
你才能够经历到那个世界上都在讲的自由，但是他们说他们却不能经历到。
And so, even now, I would to encourage you, if you're willing to, equate inner healing as being free in His will.
所以我邀请你来看，能不能画上一个等号呢？就是内在医治，就是得自由。
Inner healing is to help us discover what is God like, how does He think, how does He do things in His will. And when that alignment comes, suddenly we'll go, wow, this is living. This is really living.
内在医治就是让我们来发掘神是怎么样的神，他怎么做事，他怎么想事情，然后忽然我们就发现，这就带来我们的医治。
And one of the awesome processes of this process of healing or alignment centers on the presence of God.
而我要表达的是，这个很令人惊讶的是，这一个医治，这一个与神的对齐，是建立在神的同在里面。
Because you take the idea of inner healing, what is the mechanism? How does inner healing take place? I would say it centers on the reality of the presence of God.
当我们谈到内在医治是怎么样表达，它实际的运作是什么呢？我要说，它的中心就是神的同在。
Not the theory of the presence of God. The whole church is good with theories, but I'm saying the reality.
不是在讲一个理论，所有的教会都在讨论神同在的理论，但是我讲的是神同在的实际。
Because when the reality of the presence of God touches us,
因为当神真实的同在触摸我们的心，
all of the things that we hunger for, all of the things that we are not sure, suddenly clarity comes and understanding comes.
我们不确定的，我们所渴慕的事，在一瞬间都可以很清楚的明白，让我们可以了解。
So I want to, even by using my own journey, define right now a few key characteristics of the presence of God.
所以现在我要用我的经历与主走过的这样的一个历程，来表达出几个很关键的神同在的表达。
When an individual like me or like you, a human being, suddenly goes from the theoretical presence of God to the real presence of God,
当你和我们这样子的一个个体，我们忽然间从理论上知道神同在，而进到真实的神同在。
we use the word, I feel the presence of God.
我们会用一个词说，我感受到神的同在。
But it's in the realm of emotion, and it's in the realm of the mind, and often it's even in the realm of the body as we feel the Holy Spirit's fire or the power of God upon us.
我们心的领域，我们意志的领域，甚至我们肉身的领域，就可以开始经历到神的同在，像是着火或是怎么样其
The
他。
real presence of God, God that we define as a living being, actually connecting with me like a human being is connecting with
我
me.
们定义神是真实的存在在自然界的那一位，就是像一个人一样这么真实的让我们经历到。
That's what I mean by the real presence of God.
这是我说真实与神相遇的这样的一个意义，
Or the actual presence of God. Yeah.
而是实际的与神相遇。
It's like if during lunchtime I said, hey, anyone in this room, let's go eat fish tacos.
就像是我在中餐的时间来问你们，谁要跟我去吃鱼的 taco？
We go into a car, we drive somewhere, we have conversation, we laugh, we get to know more about each other.
我们上车，我们在路上一路聊天，我们很开心的笑，我们更多的认识彼此，这么实际。
You get to see how I respond to traffic.
你会看到我面对交通不好，我怎么表达？
Do I speed or am I a law-abiding driver?
我是会超速，还是我是很守法的驾
You
驶？
get to encounter my appetite. How many fish tacos do I actually order?
你会经历到我的胃口，你可以看到我到底点了多少个 taco。
Do I like onions? Do I not like onions? Do I like spicy or not? Just the whole encounter.
你会经历到我到底是喜欢洋葱不喜欢洋葱，我喜欢辣椒不喜欢辣椒，你会这么实际上经历到我的喜好。
Before this afternoon session takes place, you would have had a real experience with Jess.
在下午课开始之前，因为午餐你会很真实的经历到 Jess 是一个怎么样的人。
And something happens at your heart level. Something happens about your opinion with regards to me. And you speak of Jess as someone that you have actually encountered.
你会在心理上、在知识上、在认识 Jess 这件事上有实际的增长，你会可以说出来一些话，是你真正认识过这个人。
When this phenomenon experience happens, one of the first things that happens is suddenly a human being is awakened to one of the primary purposes of why he or she exists.
当他真实的经历到主这样子的现象，会带出一个觉醒。这个觉醒是他终于找到他为什么存在在这里的意义。
when suddenly we have a real encounter with God,
在我们突然间经历到神真实的同在，
we are awakened, or we are connected with, this is why I'm living today.
我们就觉醒到，或我们说连结到我为什么今天活在这里的意义。
This is why I exist.
这是为什么我存在的理由。
Because you begin to have actual experience of the impact of His presence upon your life.
因为你开始很实际的经历到他进到你的生命里的这样的冲击，
And you realize my deepest longings suddenly feel like it's finally getting fulfilled.
你会实际经历到你生命当中最深的渴望，就在这一瞬间满足了。
And then you also grow in this revelation that this is what God desires as well.
你就会增长一个启示，就是这也是神的心意，他也是这样想的。
So if anything, when you enter in, or when you embrace what we would call inner healing, it gives us this wonderful fruit in our lives.
所以当我们经历这个内在医治的这个旅程，我们就实际经历到这样子真实与神相遇的果实。
Sometimes we actually walk away from this phrase called inner healing because it's mislabeled, and we're starting to talk about is encountering God.
有时候我们离开这个内在医治的这样的一个主题，因为它被搞得很混淆了，但是我们只是来谈遇见神。
So encountering God clarifies for us why God designed us, created us, and breathed life into us in the first place.
因为遇见神，那神为什么透过遇见神，我们为什么被创造？我们神对我们的心意是什么，就可以很清楚的被表达出来。
We get strengthened in the real eternal purpose of our life.
我们就会在永恒的生命的存在的目的里面被强化。
And that is to have deep fellowship and partnership with Him.
那这就带来更深的伙伴的关系，或者是跟他同在的渴望。
And the awesome thing about this is the feelings is mutual. We desire that, but God says, no, I desired it before you desired it.
所以我们就明白到，我们在渴望他的里面成熟，但是神就告诉我们说，不只是你这样渴望，是我先渴望与你接近。
Because He is the creator. We are the created ones.
因为他才是创造者，是他这样创造你的。
So He thought about our purpose before He actually created us.
所以他已经在创造我们之前，就已经想好他创造我们的目的到底是什么。
Okay, so catch this. God decided He would create you and I.
所以你抓住这个重点吗？神渴慕我们，在他创造我们之前，
And He decided, why do I want to create human beings?
他已经决定了，他思想过我为什么要创造人类。
And based on why I want to create human beings, I'm going to put design into them that when they live in that purpose, they will feel life.
我要创造人类，在这样的目的里面，当他们被创造的时候，他们可以活在这样的一个实际里面。
And one of God's primary vision for creating human beings is relationship, partnership.
而神最主要的意向放在人类的创造这件事上，就是他想要享受关系，和我们成为伙伴。
I want to create many human beings who could relate to me.
神的心意是，我要创造很多的人类，而这些人是与我有关系的。
And so you'll find Him repeatedly even saying that through scriptures. For example, one of the earliest ones, not the earliest, one of the early ones is when God told Moses, build me a tabernacle.
你可以在经文里面看见神不断重复的有这样表达。有一个在早先的经文，就是神对摩西说：“你为我建造会幕。”
We won't turn there right now, but Exodus 33.
我们现在不看，但是我告诉你，在出埃及记32章
You know,
33，
yeah, in that whole section of the story, God says, build me a tabernacle so that I may dwell amongst you.
所以出埃及记33章里面，他对摩西说：“你要建造会幕，所以我可以住在你们中间。
Build me a tabernacle so that I can dwell, I can be near you.
建造一个会幕，所以我可以住在你们中间，我可以与你们这么靠近。”
And then fast forward to Jesus' time.
那我们就快转到耶稣的时代。
In John 17, Jesus said a prayer,
在约翰福音17章，耶稣做了一个祷告，
a long prayer.
很长的一个祷告。
And one key part of this prayer is says, Father, I desire. He says, Father, I desire. I'm praying for this, Father.
在这个祷告里面的重点是说，耶稣说：“父啊，我为这件事来祷告。”
And what was his desire?
那他这个祷告的渴慕是什么呢？
Because his desire reflects the Father's
因为
desire.
耶稣的渴慕就是反映出神的渴慕，
His desire reflects the Creator God's desire.
他的渴慕呢，就反映出那个创造主的渴慕。
He says, I desire that those whom you have given me may be with me where I'm at.
那耶稣的渴慕是说，那些你所赐给我的人，我为他们祷告，能够常与我同在。
Father, I desire
父啊，我渴慕
that those who know me
那些认识我的，
will actually be with me.
会能够事实上的与我同在。
Because this is the core purpose
因为这就是核心的目标，
of human existence.
人们存在的核心的目的。
So his presence gives us that, wow, this is why I live.
就给我们一个 idea 说，哇，这就是我为什么活着。
And I believe that as you walk into the ministry of inner healing, this revelation will become more and more confident in your life because you were designed to live this way.
当你走进这个内在医治的旅程的这样的服事里，你就会发现这样的一个真理会更深更深的加添在你的生命中。
His presence
他的同在
also brings healing of identity.
就带来我们身份的医治。
The very nearness of him, when we get to encounter him, it defines our identity.
当我们这样的靠近他，真实的遇见他，就定义了我们的身份，核心身份。
Identity is defined through relationship.
我们身份是借由关系定义出来的，
Whether good identity or bad identity, it's defined through relationship.
不管我们的定义是好的还是不好的，它都是借由关系定义出来的。
So here's the Son of Man, Jesus himself.
所以这就是人子，是耶稣。
So when Jesus came, he lived through life like we did.
所以当
Like we
耶稣来的时候，他活着跟我们一样的活着的生命。
There was a day where he got baptized.
他也有经历到受洗那一天。
But when he was baptized, the heavens opened and the Father declared some things that was, wow, powerful.
当他受洗的那一天，天打开了，天父宣告了出一个很有力量的话语。
Father says, you are my beloved Son. I take delight in you.
天父说：“你是我的爱子，是我所喜悦的。”
The presence of God broke through the barrier between his throne and the water where Jesus is about to be dunked, or where Jesus got dunked. And that distance was broken through and the Father spoke directly.
这个天上与地上，在耶稣受洗的那里与天上宝座中间的隔绝被神打开了，透过他强而有力的话语。
That's a manifestation of presence.
这是一个神同在的很彰显。
That's one very supernatural way where God says, my presence is going to impact you.
这是超自然的一个彰显，神的同在要怎么样的来临到人类。
And so his voice broke through from the supernatural realm to the natural realm, and he spoke the phrase, you are my son. And not only are you my son that I love, but I actually enjoy you. I take delight in you.
所以神的话语从超自然界突破进到这个自然界里面，并且发出声音说：“你是我的爱子。”而不但只是你是我的爱子，是我享受的那一位。
Would you be willing to believe that that statement is the success of Jesus' life and ministry.
你愿不愿意这样子来相信呢？这样的一个宣告就带来耶稣的服事生命的成功。
The strengthening of Jesus' identity produced the fruit of successful life and ministry.
耶稣对于他的身份、核心身份的这样的认定的强化，透过神来的强化，带出了耶稣的生命和服事的果实。
And so John 13, you know the story where Jesus after the supper got up and took a towel and started washing the stinky feet of his followers.
所以当约翰福音13章，
对，
再讲一次，13章。
The story where Jesus started washing the feet of the disciples.
所以当耶稣开始为门徒洗脚。
Before he actually washed, there was a statement there. And Jesus, knowing,
在耶稣开始服侍他们之前，耶稣有一个宣告。那时候耶稣知道
there was a knowing
那是一个认知。
before the action.
在行动之前，他有一个清楚的认知。
He knows that he had come from God.
他知道他是从神来。
He knows that he is going back to him.
他知道他会回到他那里去。
And he knows that his reward is in the Father.
他知道他一切的奖赏都在父神那里。
Simply put, he knew his identity.
所以很清楚的表达，他知道他自己的身份定义是什么。
And so he washed the disciples' feet.
是从这个认知里面，所以他为门徒洗脚。
That phrase for many years have moved my heart.
这样的一个经文，在很多年都很感动我的心。
Because it just again speaks of what happened in the life of this man called Jesus because what happened in the life of Jesus because his identity was so strong and secure.
耶稣能够表达出来的，成为这样子，我们可以看见，是因为他生命当中的核心身份的定义是这么样的强壮。
His presence
是神的同在
strengthens our eternal identity.
神的同在来强化我们永恒的身份认同。
And when our identity in God is strengthened, our life walks in maturity, our ministry walks in maturity, and we are successful that way.
而我们对于身份的认同的强调，就是可以带出我们在服事或在我们生命当中来走进在神里面的成功和成熟。
This is a result of the presence of God imparted in our lives.
这是当神的同在彰显在我们生命当中的时候所结出来的果子。
It's deeper than just being able to memorize theological statements about who you are.
这不只是在理论上面，在神学上知道你是谁。
It's an encountering of that reality because the reality of God is interacting with us.
这是很实际的经历到神同在的真实与我们的互动。
The presence of God also awakens.
神的同在就是唤醒我们。
Awakens pure enjoyment and satisfaction.
这是神唤醒我们在他的牺牲里面的很单纯的喜乐。
That when we are designed to desire good things.
我们被神创造来享受美好的事物。
We want to enjoy because life is about enjoying the things about life.
生命就是一个可享受的，我们的生命被创造就是来享受。
And so when the presence of God became more and more real in my life, I find, wow, this is ultimate satisfaction.
当我们知道神的同在越深越深的让我们经历到，我们就知道这个是生命很实际的满足。
Psalm 16, the psalm says, in your presence
诗篇63篇
is 16篇
sorry
16篇11节 Psalm 16 verse 11, the final verse
16篇11节
It says, in your presence is fullness of joy, and in your right hand are pleasures forevermore.
16篇的第11节，
哎
你将生命的道路指示我，在你面前有满足的喜乐，在你右手有永远的福乐。
I remember singing this song in Sunday school in Chinese, this verse.
我还记得在这个主日学用中文来唱这个经文，
But when I was young, I sang it as a theory.
但是在我年轻的时候，我唱好像是理论一样。
Today I stand before you talking about it as reality.
但是我今天在你面前要告诉你，这是很生命的实际。
His presence, part of this whole bigger topic that we call inner healing, is connecting us to where enjoyment and fulfillment really is.
那我们来透过内在意志这样的一个主题来谈论到他的同在的实际是这样子的，可以享受到的，是这样带来喜乐的。
Physically, we can enjoy His presence. Mentally, in our minds, we enjoy the reality of Him. And in our emotions, we feel love, mercy, compassion from Him.
我们在身心灵的不同层面都可以真实经历到神的同在，从身体的、从心灵里的到情绪上面的，都可以享受在神的同在里。
Okay. But there's one more thing about the presence of God that sometimes might feel negative, but actually it's one of the most powerful fruit that His presence can bring in our life.
还有一件事在神的同在里我要提到的，有时候我们是很负面的感受到它的，但是它却是一个很强而有力的真理。
The presence of God, let me look at what. Okay. The presence of God in our lives becomes a strong motivation for maturity.
神在我们生命当中的同在，成为我们渴慕想要成熟的一个动机。
It becomes when you enter into the reality of the presence of God, it's such a strong influence in our lives that we love it so much we're willing to walk towards maturity.
所以在神的同在里面，你可以真实到经历到，因为他这么爱我，我渴慕想要更多在他爱里面成熟。
It's kind of like if I am training up my children, sometimes I said, if you do this, I'll give you a piece of candy.
好像我在养育我的孩子的过程当中，有时候我跟他说，你这样做，我就给你一个糖果。
Because that candy is like the presence of God. There's sweetness about it. I like it. I value it.
这个甜的这个糖果就像是在神里面的甜美，好像是神的同在一样，它可以实际尝到。
When I have it, I feel good. When I don't have it, I feel something is missing.
我吃到了，我觉得这真是很棒。当我没有得到的时候，我感觉到损失了一些什么。
So this is one of the reasons what I believe why the enemy has sowed seeds of religion in the church, so that the church will rarely taste the presence of God.
所以我们看到仇敌是怎么样借着宗教的灵来攻击教会，让教会的实际上是从来很少尝过这个神的甜美。
Most things are stuck in programs, 3-step strategies, arguments over doctrine. It's all important but surface level.
所以神在教会里面充满了这些节目，充满了这些策略，充满了这些活动，但是让人们没有办法真正尝到神的甜美。
And then we keep telling them, you must be mature, you must be mature, you must be
但是
mature.
我们教会里面却不断告诉信徒，你要成熟，你要成熟，你要成熟。
But yet God's ways is that His presence is one of the greatest motivational factors for me to walk in maturity.
但是事实上，神的同在的那个甜美，正是一个动机，可以吸引我们不断想要在它里面成熟。
I understand correction. I understand knowing truth, studying the Bible.
我知道那个被导正，我